all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look.
Welcome, North Texas soccer community. Okay, I'm excited for this podcast, my own JMS Podcast, episode number 1. Before I get started, I just want to thank Roger and Manny B. Follow them. They invited me to do their podcast, No Red Cards Allowed. After doing that podcast, I received so much positive feedback from members of our club outside the community, outside the state. They enjoyed it. They appreciate it. I remember one parent saying, I had you pegged differently, and they were in the club. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while now. I'm not somebody that likes to speak, but I feel that we live in an era of misinformation, rumors, lies. It's hard to tell who and what is true. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is for many reasons, but one is to let you get to know me, who I am. Don't take it just for what I say. Do your due diligence. Ask around, look at previous messages, but just do your due diligence. I also want to give this platform to any coach in North Texas to share whatever they want to share. And lastly, I want to share my testimony. I feel, one of the things as a Christian that I need to do is shine my light for his glory. My favorite verse is Jeremiah 29:11. The Lord declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and give you hope and a future." I truly believe that in my life because I'm sitting here as Coach Juan back into coaching. I never imagined I would get back into coaching. In fact, I never thought I would coach in my life. So episode number 1 is get to know who I am, why I do what I do, how soccer saved my life. I grew up in Oak Cliff. I have 5 brothers. I was one of 6, all boys, no girls. My parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, and none of my brothers played organized sports. In 3rd grade, we moved to houses, and I went to Winnetka Elementary School. And I still remember that day, that first day at school, playing recess. Prior to going to Winnetka recess, we played Foursquare, we played tetherball, games like that. But at Winnetka, there was a group of boys that played soccer. I had never played soccer in my life, so there I was chasing the ball like a chicken with its head cut off. I remember one of my friends at that school, Ray Lara, may he rest in peace, invited me to his soccer practice tryouts. He said, "Hey, you're pretty fast. You want to come try out?" And I was like, "A real team, with uniforms?" He was like, "Yes." He goes, "That was new to me." So I still remember going to that soccer practice. And after the soccer practice, the coach, Rudy Cipriano Sr., may he rest in peace, approached me and said, "You made it." I was excited. I feel like I won the World Cup or made a World Cup team. The excitement, I ran home. I told my mom, I made it. I made the team. They gave me a list of equipment that I needed, shin guards, cleats, and then placed the order for the uniforms. I still remember those big old shin guards with the sock. The cleats were Patrick. So if you remember that brand, Umbro Patrick. So I remember then getting my uniform, sleeping with my uniform. I literally knew at that point soccer is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional soccer player. So the first game in Oak Cliff started. I remember coming off the bench, learning positions, but that failure allowed me to build a work ethic. You know, I wanted to be the best soccer player. I wanted to be a professional soccer player, so I used soccer as something that kept me out of trouble. And so I went from third grade playing, fourth grade, fifth, then making classic league with a team called Golden Eagles. At that point, started middle school sport, middle school, seventh grade. And at that time in Oak Cliff, you start realizing there's a lot of kids that don't have the guidance, the direction. Um, and I was blessed to have parents that were strict. They wouldn't allow none of us to spend the night in anybody's house. I had parents that loved us, cared for us. And a lot of my friends growing up, they were always roaming the streets and, you know, using drugs, stealing cars. And my dream was to be a professional soccer player. And I still remember in seventh grade, my seventh grade pre-algebra teacher, Deborah Rosenberg, one day stopped me in the hall and she literally scared me. She said, "Could I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." And she says, "I'm gonna ask you a question. Do not lie to me." And she's asked me straight out, "Do I do drugs?" And my answer was like, "No." And she got mad and said, "You're lying. Don't lie to me." I said, "No, I don't do drugs." She said, "You're lying." I got, I guess, frustrated that she wasn't believing me. And I felt the way I responded to her, I felt that she saw hope in me because I responded to her, "I've never done drugs. My dream is to be a professional soccer player. So how could I make that dream if I do drugs?" She saw hope. And I still remember she said, "Okay, I believe you." She goes, "But you're hanging around with all your friends. And even though you don't do drugs, you're not going to make it out of these streets hanging around with them." And so I still remember that conversation because that same year, I ran away from home. Like I mentioned, my parents were strict. They didn't let me spend the night at anybody's house. So there was one night where there was a house party, and it was during the breakdancing era. So if you've seen my daughter's graduation party, I started breakdancing there. So I used to always be into breakdancing, whatever that era was that we were into. I wanted to be the best at everything. So there was a house party, and my friends were like, "You got to come, you got to come." They were like, we're gonna battle." And so it was a late party. I asked my parents, "Can y'all let me go?" And they said no. And I begged. They're like, "Okay, you got to come back at 9:30. I was like, that's when the party's gonna get started. And so getting upset, I realized like I acted in a childish way and said, "You know what? I'm running away from home." So I got some stuff, went to the party, went to my best friend growing up, Courtney Briscoe. He's been in prison maybe 25, 30 years. Um, so I went to his house, I ran away. And I remember my brothers knocking on doors to look for me, and they would tell my brothers, "He's not here. He's not here." I remember my seventh grade pre-algebra teacher, she come into the house, knocked on the door. Everybody was like, "Oh, Miss Deborah Rosenberg's here." And she's like, "I know he's here." And so the kids were kind of scared of her. And I came outside, got in her car. She's like, "Come with me." She said, "If you don't come with me, you're going to be dead. You might be dead or in jail after this weekend." So I went with her. She got me to come back to the house. I was scared because my dad would discipline us, but she got me to come back. At that time there, I was playing soccer, still chasing my dream of being a professional soccer player. And one day she took me to my select soccer practice. She picked me up. After practice, we're driving to my house, to my mom's house. And she asked me, She said, if your parents allowed you to come live with me, would you come live with me? And I was like, yes, but my parents would never allow it. She was like, but would you? I said, yes. And she says, well, that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from your house. I talked to your parents and they said yes. And I was like, you need to talk to my parents because they don't let me spend it at anybody's house. So she goes, yes. I walked in. I said, Mom, for real, you'll let me? And she's like, yes. So my seventh grade pre-algebra teacher had to legally adopt me so she could register me for school, sports in case of any emergency. I remember during that time, my brothers, were upset. My dad was upset a little bit because my mom cried every night because she didn't know if she made the right decision. My dad, I remember telling my mom, why'd you let him go if you're going to be sad crying? And I remember she telling him and telling me, I could not live with myself knowing that somebody wanted to help him. And I didn't let him and something happened to him. And so I'm grateful for my mom for that decision. So I moved with Deborah Rosenberg and her ex-husband, Jeff, at that time. So they legally adopted me, and I was still going to Oak Cliff, Griner. So even though, like the saying goes, you could take the kid out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the kid. That was true. He goes, I still hung around with those same friends. I did not do drugs. But with my friends, at that time, Grand Theft Auto was something that everybody was doing, joyriding. I remember one day there was something that happened that kind of I was at a crossroads. Something that happened that I felt that, okay, I either change who I'm hanging around with or what my legal guardian told me that I will end up dead or in jail was going to be true. One day, they picked me up to go to another house party, and they picked me up in a black Trans Am, and it was a stolen car. And as soon as we get from Addison, because that's where I lived, to Oak Cliff, as soon as we exit a black Trans Am in Oak Cliff, police pulled up right next to us. He said, roll down the windows, and Courtney Briscoe rolled down the window, and the cop asked him whose cars is. And he said, mine. Of course, next thing you know, he just floored it. So we drove, got in a wreck. We exit out of the car. Four of us scattered. I'm running through woods, through creeks, twisted ankle, going through alley. Cops are chasing me. I hear the helicopter, and I'm jumping fences and asking people to hide me at their house. They would say no. I would get upset at them. Next thing you know, they're yelling, he's over here. Feel like there was nowhere to run except I saw this tree. I climbed that tree, and I broke every branch. I took off my white t-shirt I had, and I balled myself so tight. And I was on that tree for 4 or 5 hours. And all I was doing was praying at that time. I didn't have a relationship with God. I said, but I was just praying. I knew there was a God, but I didn't have a relationship. But I was praying, Lord, please get me out of this situation. Because I knew that if I had got caught, I would go back to my mom's house. And I enjoyed having my own room, my own privacy. And I felt like, yes, I saw my future kind of, if I go back to Oak Cliff, it's not going to be good for me. And for 4 or 5 hours, they didn't see me. It was a miracle that they didn't see me because they flashed the light on that tree so many times. I saw them go under cars, bushes, knocking on doors, opening garage doors. In Oak Cliff, the garages are usually detached from the house. So they're going through all these garage doors, and I'm in that tree and I'm able to see through the cracks, but they weren't able to see me. It was a miracle. I remember coming down after 4 or 5 hours, eventually making it back home to Addison, my little guardian being there, worried, looking at me, scratched up my face, my arms, rolled ankle, and her going to her room. The next day, her waking me up and saying, "You still gonna go to your SAR game?" I couldn't play because I was injured, my rolled ankle. I remember the coach looking at me, is like, kind of like, "What happened to you?" Like, I got beat up. So I explained to him what happened. I remember on the way back home, I promised her that I wouldn't hang out with my same friends.